Hi, I'm Moynihan. You might recognise me from such bike videos as the Documentary or Big in Japan. I'm here at Bike Park Wales and I've got some tips for preparing for a bike riding trip. So if you're flying for your trip, I would say go to the bike shop and get yourself a bike box, which they're generally thrown away anyway. Check with your airline on what size you can take, but I've flown with pretty large boxes where you only really need to take off your front wheel bars and pedals, so a lot less packing required. You don't need to store it, so you can chuck it away at the end. And also, you got it for free, so if it gets bashed and gets a hole in it while you're flying, it doesn't matter, you're throwing it away anyway. Following on from that, you can generally jam a lot of stuff in those big bike boxes. So all your clothes, shoes, kit, and then you can get away with not flying with an extra bag, which is easier at the airport and it's cheaper as well. So it's always worth checking what weight you're allowed with the airline, but I've generally flown with quite a lot of airlines and stuffed a lot of stuff in my bike box and gotten away with it. If you are struggling for weight, a risky but rewarding strategy can be to go to the check-in desk, leave a few of your items strewn on the ground and next to your hand luggage, get the bike weighed, and then after it's weighed and you get sent along to oversized baggage, open her up and fire those heavy items in there, then off to the oversized luggage you go with a nice 40 kilo bike box. If you work for EasyJet or British Airways though, that wasn't me that said that. Helmets are always a bit of a pain in the arse to travel with. They're a bit of a pesky shape and they're what protect your head, so you need to worry about them. And generally you're traveling with two, so it's difficult to fit them in your bike box or your suitcase. I generally keep mine with me in my helmet bag as hand luggage with me at all times. It keeps it safe, it's space effective, and no one's generally ever worried about it or told me off for having extra hand luggage, anything like that. At the moment I'm traveling with my Met parachute, which is perfect. It's 2 helmets in one, so I only have to have 1 helmet, and if it's being difficult with space, just whip the chin piece off and I can pack that separately and no worries. So I like to keep a big list at the front of my diary that is a list of everything I might need on a trip, and then each time I'm leaving I just work through that list before I go and make sure I've not forgotten anything. The classic things that people forget and that are an absolute nightmare are axles, front or back. It becomes very difficult to get a spare axle, so don't forget your axle. Equally, if you take your disc off to travel or fly, don't forget your disc, don't forget your disc bolts. These things are all really annoying. In the same vein, if you're traveling somewhere that might be difficult to get parts or spares, take a spare hanger for your bike. That's generally a nightmare to get a hold of. Maybe spare brake pads, particularly if you've got an unusual brand of brake and it's going to be difficult to get pads. So generally having a list of all the things that you need and all the things that you might forget that you can quickly check over is really important, I'd say, for any traveling trip. It's worth considering, especially if you're going to be in an area with poor signal, like in the mountains, or if you're abroad, that you might want to download in advance any Trail Finder app regions or Google Map regions, etc. Saves you from getting stuck once you're out there. You could obviously speak to local bike shops and things like that once you're there, but it's always worth being prepared in advance, having a wee look online, maybe a forum or something like that, and knowing where the trails are, knowing where you're maybe going to park, and any strange little local anomalies that might cause you trouble once you're there. A perfect example of that is if you're travelling to the Scottish Highlands, you might want to bring a midgie net. They obviously don't bite me because I'm ginger, but if you're not of my persuasion, then you're going to have a terrible time on your hands. If you're travelling with your mates on a trip, it's worth considering that you don't all need to take a track pump with you. You don't all need to take a cassette tool, so maybe if there's 3 of you travelling, one person can take the cassette tool, one person can take a track pump, and someone else can take the heavy set of Allen keys. It means you can travel light and not everyone has to bring loads of stuff. And you don't worry about one of your mates stealing all your equipment and losing it because everyone's got a little bit of something there. So those are my top tips for going on a bike trip. If you've got any hot tips, let us know in the comments, and thanks to Bike Park Wales for having us ride here today.